tonight and talk about the making of my first ever feature film. My little animation, pseudo animation, Salome's Last Prance, with my original music and my little cartoons that I made for it, based on Oscar Wilde's play Salome. Salome was banned in England for about 40 years. Initially, it was banned, on a technicality that plays biblical characters were not allowed to be performed in public. Um, but even after that ban was lifted, it was Salome still couldn't get a license for like 20 some years after the fact. So it remained banned for a long time. They did have private performances in England, and it was performed like in France, and but that's not what I want to talk about tonight. What I want to talk about tonight is the making of my movie. So it was last year. I had done a ton of like music composition. I'd written all this music on the computer, and I was like, well, how do I get this music to be heard? I think it would be good in movies. I think it would be good for dance. Like, I think this music could be really interesting with the right applications. Well, how do I do that? Um, and I thought to myself, well, I could read out loud, and at the same time, I absolutely love his play Salome, and I always wanted to play the character Salome because I just think it's just a great character and a great part, and so I really wanted to play that. But I was like, well, I don't know how I would even do that because, especially at the time, I was having issues with like making longer videos and uploading them. And so I didn't see how I'd be able to like make a video that long and then upload it. But so what I decided to do was to read the entire book, starting at the back of the book with the essays, and work my way all the way up. And I figured that by the time I read everything else in this book on YouTube, I would be ready to do a version of Salome. And so that is what I did ever since last March. I've been reading this book on YouTube, and I've read the whole thing. And and so then it was time to make the production of Salome, right? So I had to make the pictures. And so the movie that I absolutely love so much, the only production of Salome I've ever seen, even though like other people have done productions of it, including like Al Pacino or something. So I thought to myself, well, I'll do some sketches from this movie, and then I'll ink them in, and then by the time I do that, like, they'll be different enough, and it'll be fine. But like, I'm doing these sketches, and some of them are good, some of them are not good, but you know, I wasn't about to start from scratch to figure out like all these different scenes and all these characters. Like, I have never done like very much cartooning in my life before. So for me to try to like tackle this whole like full length feature and draw cartoons with all these different characters was like, I wasn't gonna do it. I didn't have the experience. So I decided to start with the movie and make my drawings as inspired by the movie. And it also helped that the movie is absolutely gorgeous. It's made by Ken Russell, and he did the Who's Tommy. I don't know if you've seen Tommy, the movie of the Who's rock opera. I think it's wonderful, and I love the way that Ken Russell made it. It's very I don't even know how to describe it. You just have to watch it. I mean, people run around naked a lot, and that is very fun to me. Um, so I went ahead and I started doing all these like rough pencil sketches of all the major points in the movie. But then as I kept doing that, I was like, you know what? Even if I try to ink these in my own style, I think they're still too close to the movie. And I really don't want to have like a copyright problem. So I thought to myself, okay, well, I guess I'll take my sketches and then like I'll make cartoons out of them, right? So I started doing that. And by the way, this was kind of an arduous process for me just because I'm not used to doing cartoons. Like I had been doing all the reading and all the like selecting of my original music to go with each scene. And so I was learning a lot about like what of the music that I had written might go with what, like what it all sounded like, what kind of feelings each of my pieces invoked. And so that part I felt like I was much more comfortable with. But to try to tackle all these characters and this whole story was a lot. So, I start drawing the cartoons from my sketches, and like a lot of them are bad, which is fine because I figured that, well, I'll take my sketches from the movie, I'll make them into cartoons. The cartoons will be bad, but then from those bad cartoons, I will redraw them into better cartoons. And I figured that by the time I had redrawn things twice, hey Red Deep, what's happening? I figured that by the time I had redrawn them twice, they would be far enough from the movie that it wouldn't be like a copyright problem. And also, I would then get to add some of my own like artistic flair to it or change things up just so that it wasn't like such a total lift. I mean, things that come to mind that were easy to change were like the costuming on the guards, the cistern that they were keeping John the Baptist in, because in the movie they had him in some kind of like cabinet that had like an elevator where he would go down and come up again. And I didn't redraw that, so I just like Googled a cistern, and I came up with this image of, well, you'll see it when I show you eventually, a cistern. And so that was something that I was like, okay, good, I've changed this up a little bit. Another thing that was that when I read the playthrough, I saw that they mention Herodias the Queen as wearing a black mitre sewn with pearls. Now, in the movie, she's not wearing a mitre. A mitre is like that kind of like pointy hat that the Pope wears. And so it was then easy to like change that. See, this is the picture from the movie where she's sitting like in this little cabinet thing that they had as a cistern. So I changed that. But, some of the costumes got changed or simplified as I went just for reasons. Oh, what? Another thing I noticed. So we're getting into some of the like not very good cartoons. These would be like the things I drew from the sketches, but these are not like these are like the second rendition, not the third that I ended up using for the movie. So I realized in the movie that a lot of the characters were wearing two different costumes, and I never caught it, even though I'd watched this movie numerous times. But then when I was going through and drawing it, I realized like the young Syrian, at first he's shown with these like this costume with like feathers on his shoulders, and then later he has some kind of like lederhosen with like spirals on his chest, and I was like, wow, that's weird. And then Salome, part of the time she's wearing this like short skirt with like ruffles coming out at her hips, and then the rest of the time she has this like draped skirt that's kind of draped up over her waist and then goes down to a tail in the back. And also, Herodias is wearing two different costumes as well. And so it's just kind of funny. Oh, yeah, these are the first couple that I redrew from the sketches in pen, so they're extra bad. And here we go. Yeah. Some of the really bad second renditions that had to turn into better third renditions. And you'll notice, except for this one, that I was dividing my paper up into 4. Like, this took a lot of paper. Like, these are all like the first rendition sketches, and that's on like newsprint paper. And then this is all the paper that it took to do like my second and final renditions. So it's a lot of paper. I mean, it's fortunate that I had just gotten like a few sketchbooks like in a pack, because if I didn't have all those sketchbooks, I didn't know how to do this. But yeah, working on, oh wait, this is one of the final ones. But working in these small spaces was kind of challenging. Also because the aspect ratio. Oh, this right here in Salome's Last Dance, the Ken Russell movie. Um, there's a scene they have like a play within a play thing. So they have Oscar Wilde as a character in the movie. Him and Bosie. Oh, thank you. These it'll get better. These are like the second renditions, but it'll get better. Hey, this is all to tell you about the making of my movie, Salome's Last Prance. So please check it out. It's in the description. It's a full length movie that I just made, and right here I'm telling you about the making of. So please check it out whenever you get the chance. But but what's funny about the Salome's Last Dance is that so they have Oscar Wilde as a character in the play in the movie, but Oscar Wilde was 6'3", and they had this guy who was like 5'6" playing him, and I'm like, why? He was this big old man. Why are you gonna like cast this tiny guy? But anyway, so yeah, this I was gonna leave this like and put it in my production like kind of as a throwback or as like an inside joke, but then I was like, I don't think people are gonna get it. It's just gonna look weird. So that was like a kill your darlings moment. So yeah. So yeah, as you can see, all these second rendition cartoons that I was making. There's so many of them. This took so long. I mean, it was the shortest part of the process because I only spent like a few weeks on it. But because it wasn't something I was used to, like I found it kind of challenging. And like at some point I had to like kind of take a break a little bit. But at the same time I did enjoy it because it was stretching what I was like used to doing. It was stretching what I was able to do. Although at the same time, when you watch my movie, like you can definitely see where my weak points are. Like, I mean, I draw people mostly straight on. I'm not doing very much profile or 3/4 or other angles. That's something that I really need to work on. So as soon as we get through, let's see. And then there's some more, like, yeah, that's so much. Okay, now let me show you the cartoons that ended up in the movie. So, and you can see that these are like more filled in now and they're better. So one thing I did with John the Baptist was I gave him this like spiky hair and these weird spiral eyes. Let me show you this. And so this is like kind of a face that I had drawn like in some of my artwork previously. And I like how it gave him kind of an otherworldly appearance with those spiral eyes. I mean, nobody else has that. It's not normal. It's not realistic. But since he was like this major prophet, this like untouchable prophet guy, that was appropriate. Now I will say that so these are some of the sketches that I did for the dance. And the dance ended up being like the most challenging part, partially because the dance that happens in the movie wasn't something that I was really going to copy or that I even could copy, because in the movie, now Imogen Millay Scott, who played Salome in Salome's Last Dance, she actually lost her sight right before they filmed the movie. And Ken Russell, like all the people who were, I guess, making the movie, they wanted Ken Russell to hire a different actress to cast somebody else, but he was like, no, she has to play the part, she's got to play it, and so he's stuck behind this actress who he hired, Imogen Millay Scott, even though she was like basically blind when they were making the movie. Like she just did it blind, and it's incredible. I always thought that her performance was just phenomenal, And so, but all that is to say that is the reason they had a stunt double. Oh, here's the cistern that I drew that instead of having like the elevator one that they had. So this is why that they had like a double, like a stunt double doing the dance in the movie, but they also did it in a very like breaking the fourth wall kind of way, because they used a male stunt double to do the dance. And sometimes you can see that it's like she and he are being shown almost at the same time, and it's confusing Herod. But yeah, so they used this male stunt double to do the dance, and and it wasn't something that I could really like use stills from to redraw. And so what I had to do was like go online and look for other images of the Dance of the Seven Veils, and fortunately they were all available. And of course, a lot of them came. They were like of Rita Hayworth, because apparently she did a production of Salome, which I haven't seen. The only one I ever saw was Salome's Last Dance by Ken Russell. And so here I tried to redraw one particular cartoon that I wasn't totally happy with. But you know what? The redrawings didn't work out anyway, so I used my original one, even though it's kind of odd. But you know, having that kind of oddness, that roughness in the cartoons was really something that I was comfortable with, because this is like my first feature, and I knew that it was going to be like my first movie and not my last one. And indeed, like I learned so much making it, and I also ran into a lot of technological difficulties. So, like, where do I start with this? So now I did figure out that that if I just deleted everything else on my computer, I would be able to fit this on my computer. But even doing that, I still had issues with playback, because it was overwhelming my computer so much, because like I had all the different audio tracks, I had all the pictures, and then I was adding all these like filters and effects to like add color and quasi animation to add different things to it. And it really I was doing this in CapCut, and it really kind of like overloaded the computer, and the playback wasn't working. So that made it really hard to like edit it really cleanly because of that. And what I would do in the future to avoid that problem is like I would do all my audio tracks, I would cut them all together so that the audio flowed smoothly, and then I would export it. And then I would start over using that video at that like file that had all the audio, and then I would then add the pictures to that until I got all the pictures together with the audio the way I wanted it. And then I would export it and start over again, and then I would add the filters and the effects. And I think that if and when I do that next time, that it will be a lot easier for my computer to handle it, because it just was not like up to the challenge. And so and also, hello Sandy, what's happening? I'm talking about the making of my movie Salome's Last Prance. It's in the description box, please check it out. And so yeah, but I really didn't want to get like too precious about this, because I knew that it was going to be my first movie and not my last. And now once I made it, like I really feel like it kind of gets better as it goes on. Like when I rewatch it back, I'm like, yeah, the parts that are like a little bit later like are much better. And I think that one reason for that is that like some of the conversations that are happening in the beginning of the movie, I think they're supposed to be comedic, but like this was written 130 yeah, 30 some years ago, and things change, politics change, like what's funny changes. And so what I feel that I need to do actually is to rewrite this play, which is what I'm planning on doing. And then I'm going to remake the movie, and by then I'll be able to fix a lot of the problems that I had the first time around. And so that's what I really wanted to do. That's what I'm gonna do. I feel like, was there anything? Oh yeah, let me turn to the part in the book of Salome and see if I have something else to say. So Salome, a tragedy in one act. For the voice of Herod, I did like my Richard Nixon voice, my like, oh yeah, sure. You're going to dance your naked feet. Tis well, you dance your naked feet. Your little feet will be like little white doves, yes. So I thought that was funny. Um, and then for Herodias, I did my like, what is it to you if she dance in blood? Thou hast waded deep enough therein. You are looking at my daughter again. You must not look at her. And so where does that voice come from? I think like, where does this sounds? I think partially Sharon Osbourne, is one of the inspirations for it, but also the stepmother in the, I think, fairy tale theater production of Cinderella. I think she was also a big inspiration for wherever this voice is coming from. Um, so for Joe Cannon, I wasn't sure. Like, I almost kind of thought I was going to give him like a lifting voice, like behold, wait, I need to find. Let the war captains pierce her with their swords. Let them crush her beneath her field. Because I thought it'd be funny. But after all, I was like, no, let's go serious with this. Let's just give him like kind of a booming, dark, after me shall come one whose feet or whatever it is. So for Tigellinus, I didn't actually see one coming in the script, so I just did like a weird little English thing. I don't know. A Cappadocian, a Nubian, the first soldier, the second soldier. I did have like kind of an African accent that I learned or got from like this woman I worked with, so I did that. It was just like one line. And then so for the first soldier, I was trying to do kind of like a Cockney thing, but then but at the same time I had also been trying to learn like an Australian accent because there was an Australian in one of his other plays. And so it ends up being like this weird mishmash of Cockney Australian. I don't even know what it is. It's definitely the worst accent of the piece. It's definitely the least consistent accent of the piece. And unfortunately, that is and ends up being kind of like towards the beginning of the movie are some of the most egregious examples of the problems in that accent. So that's another thing that makes the beginning of the movie a little bit less effective. The Page of Herodias. So So I'll say that two of the characters that I ended up having an interesting time like drawing ended up being Herodias and the Page of Herodias, because with Herodias, of course, she had a black mitre sewn with pearls. But what happens is in the movie Salome's Last Dance, during the dance scene, she actually goes off and like hooks up with the guards and like has a threesome in this chest. And so after that is over, you see her smoking a cigarette. And so when I was doing all the drawings of Herodias, she's very frowny. She looks just absolutely miserable. She's got this mitre on. She's got this veil over her neck, just But once she starts smoking this cigarette, then I was like, you know what? I think that for the rest of the play, she's just going to be like smoking this cigarette. She's just going to be smoking. And then I started having fun with like the way I was drawing the moon. And so I would make the moon like really big in some places. And then for a couple of those scenes with Herodias smoking the cigarette, I had like the moon and stars. And so, and so, so I really enjoyed that. And this was another place where I took my own path because in the movie, they had like the moon they had like a painted backdrop with like the moon and these clouds kind of coming around it. But what I ended up doing was a moon where like here's sort of it's almost like a ring, a ring of clouds. And this is the way I ended up drawing the moon. And I thought that was kind of fun because it was different and it almost looks like a sun because it's like radially coming out, but it's actually a ring of clouds, because Herod says like the moon is showing herself naked in the sky. The clouds want to cover her nakedness, but she won't let them. She shows herself naked in the sky. And so I knew I needed to draw some clouds that were going to show the moon naked in the sky. So that was fun. And then and yeah, the page of Herodias, I ended up having some drawings with the moon like really big behind him. And so what I ended up feeling like with these drawings, there were some where the moon was really small and some where the moon was really big, and it ended up being like the drawings where the moon was really big, sort of were useful for these times when the characters were feeling their most intuitive, or they were feeling their most um, emotional, or their most afraid, because the moon is such a big like theme in Salome. Like all these characters are looking at the moon and like projecting, what they see on it, what they want to see, what they're afraid of. They're just projecting everything on the moon. You see in the beginning, and the young Syrian is like, he's like staring at the princess, and then the page of Herodias is like, look at the moon, she looks like a dead woman, and then later on you've got Herod's looking at the moon, and he's like, she looks like a mad woman. She's going around looking for lovers. And then you've got Salome saying, "Oh, look at the moon. She looks like a little piece of money. I'm sure she's a virgin. She has a virgin's beauty. She's never defiled herself. She's never abandoned herself to men." And so everybody. Oh, and then later, it's like, "Oh, the moon has turned to blood, and it's turned red as blood." So everybody is projecting their emotions onto the moon. And so to have that be like this thing that changed within the animation, got bigger and smaller according to the characters' like emotional state, I thought that was an interesting like sort of invention that happened as I was drawing these pictures. So what else do we have? We have a slave, a servant. I ended up just using this one's still from where like Herod was standing next to a guard, because after I did all these drawings, like it it was such a difficult process for me because I'm not used to it, that by the time I had done what I thought, like as much as I felt like I could do, I really didn't want to go back and do anymore. And the one time I tried to do more, like it didn't work out, and I ended up using my originals. And this was the same thing with my audio recordings as well, because it was all very impromptu. Like the whole time that I was reading this entire book on YouTube, it was all very impromptu. I almost never read the selections in advance to reading them on YouTube. I was always just reading them in the moment, just being live, being in the moment, being spontaneous. And so when it came to doing this like movie of Salome, I still had to have that kind of spontaneity, because the whole point of it was like, I want to just read the whole book so that I have like a feeling for Oscar's writing, so that by the time I get to Salome, I will be able to deliver it properly. I did not take the approach of like, okay, I will just study Salome, 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 and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse it to try to make it good. No, I just did everything impromptu, and then when I got to Salome, it was like as impromptu as possible. And because I was familiar with the story, mostly from watching the movie, like I had a sense of what the emotions had to be. But so this is the same thing. Like, oh, thanks. uh, I mean, are you hiring? Um, and so it was the same thing with Salome. There were a couple times where I wasn't sure. I recorded something and I wasn't sure about it, but when I tried to do it over again, it just didn't quite work. There was something about the spontaneity. There was something about like doing it like once and for all, just getting it done and putting it out. Because I knew this would be my first movie and not my last movie. And so to try to get like super precious about every detail, I knew that was going to bog me down. It was going to delay the project and it might never get done. I wanted it to get done and finished so that I could look at it and learn from it and make another project. And that's really like my whole MO. So let's see who else. So got the young Syrian, the page of Herodias. So have any of you guys seen my movie Salome's Last Prance that I've been sitting here talking about for a half hour? Has anybody seen it? The link is in the description. Does anybody know anything about Oscar Wilde? Do you like Oscar Wilde's writing? Do you know the importance of being earnest? Do you know anything about Oscar? I can give you a few maxims for the instruction of the overeducated. Or would you prefer to hear phrases and philosophies for the use of the young? I don't know. Let's go with overeducated and then we'll go to the young. So to give you a little taste of kind of Oscar's style, education is an admirable thing, but it is well to remember from time to time that nothing that is worth knowing can be taught. And, this harkens back to, was it Plato or Aristotle that said that all knowledge is actually remembering? And so, You can't really teach philosophy. You can only, it has to be like learned, remembered. Okay, public opinion exists only where there are no ideas. The English are always degrading truths into facts. When a truth becomes a fact, it loses all its intellectual value. It is a very sad thing that nowadays there is so little useless information. Of course, if Oscar Wilde lived today, he might not see he might not see a lack of useless information, because there seems like there's a lot of it today, right? But there's also a lot of really useful information today. I mean, with all the screwed up stuff that happens, like, you can learn just about anything with a click of a button. It's kind of amazing. The only link between literature and drama left to us in England at the present moment is the bill of the play. So what is he saying? People don't read things except the playbill? I don't know. In old days, books were written by men of letters and read by the public. Nowadays, books are written by the public and read by nobody. Now, this really does carry over to today. I mean, if you think about all the self-publishing going on, if everybody's publishing, who's reading, right? I guess all of us people who are writing things need to read other people's stuff, otherwise, like, it's like a one-way street, right? Most women are so artificial that they have no sense of art. Most men are so natural that they have no sense of beauty. Of course, Oscar was really interested in beautiful things, beautiful furniture, beautiful clothing, beautiful teacups. He didn't want you to give him a thick mug. He wanted a dainty little teacup because he was like, I'm a refined person. He had a brown velvet suit made for himself, and he just made a splash all over London, just walking around in brown velvet. There's an essay in here where he talks about how men should dress, and he really just says, like, you should wear a velvet. Wear some damn velvet. And what's funny about that is that a couple years ago, I actually made myself like a velvet, oh damn, what's the word? Where it's like a dressing robe and a nightgown, not portiere. What is the word? I can't think of the darn word. But so I made myself this peignoir set in this like dusty rose, pink velvet. And so when I read that Oscar was all into velvet, I was like, holy crap, like me and Oscar are like into velvet. And so when I read De Profundis on here, I wore my velvet peignoir in order to read that. So I thought that was pretty fun. Let's see. Friendship is far more tragic than love. It lasts longer. I guess it depends on your friendship, right? What is abnormal in life stands in normal relations to art. It is the only thing in life that stands in normal relationships to art, in normal relations to art. So art is where the abnormal things can live because they can't last in life. I don't know. A subject that is beautiful in itself gives no suggestion to the artist. It lacks imperfection. This does remind me of something that I saw recently. I don't think I actually watched the video, but it was like, why do artists like ugly faces or something? Because if a face is too perfect, there's nothing to really like gloss onto. There's nothing to pull your attention and say, ooh, that's different. If something is too beautiful, too perfect, it's like, well, how am I gonna improve on that? Like, it's just what it is. I want to find something that has a little bit of an interest that makes me want to, get closer to it to understand it. The only thing that the artist cannot see is the obvious. The only thing that the public can see is the obvious. The result is the criticism of the journalist. Art is the only serious thing in the world, and the artist is the person who is never serious. To be really medieval, one should have no body. To be really modern, one should have no soul. To be really Greek, one should have no clothes. Love it. Dandyism is the assertion of the absolute modernity of beauty. The only thing that can console one for being poor is extravagance. The only thing that can console one for being rich is economy. One should never listen. To listen is a sign of indifference to one's hearers. Even the disciple has his uses. I mean, what is he talking about? I mean, if you to listen is a sign of indifference to one's hearers, I mean, if you're able to just sit there and be so calm as to have nothing going through your head, then you must not care about what the person is saying. Maybe that's what he's trying to say. Even the disciple has his uses. He stands behind one's throne, and at the moment of one's triumph, whispers in one's ear that, after all, one is immortal. The criminal classes are so close to us that even the policeman can see them. They are so far away from us that only the poet can understand them. Those whom the gods love grow young. Okay, let's read the phrases and philosophies for the use of the young, and then I'm going to say goodnight. The first duty in life is to be as artificial as possible. What the second duty is, no one has yet discovered. Do you guys think that the first duty in life is to be as artificial as possible? Do you think we owe it to other people to be fake? To I don't know. What do you do to be fake? To put faces on your face, to paint your face, to wear certain kinds of clothes. Do you think it's our duty to be fake? Do you think that if we're not fake, we're not being nice? What do you think? Wickedness is a myth invented by good people to account for the curious attractiveness of others. That seems legit at times. If only the poor had profiles, there would be no difficulty in solving the problem of poverty. Of course, making a joke, the poor should invest more. Well, they don't have anything to invest, right? Those who see any difference between soul and body have neither. And that's interesting. I love that meme that says, you don't have, you don't, you are a soul, you have a body, right? But Oscar is saying, if you see a difference between the soul and body, you have neither. I mean, I'd have to disagree, A really well-made buttonhole is the only link between art and nature. Because you take some nature and you stick it into your art, I don't know. Religions die when they are proved to be true. Science is the record of dead religions. And right now, science is a religion, right? The well-bred contradict other people. The wise contradict themselves. I agree with that. Nothing that actually occurs is of the smallest importance. Meaning that things in your imagination are more interesting than what you actually see in the real world. Because if something's in your imagination, it has a greater significance to you, I guess. Dullness is the coming of age of seriousness. In all unimportant matters, style, not sincerity, is the essential. In all important matters, style, not sincerity, is the essential. This is the art for art's sake idea. The idea that it's more important to be stylish than to be honest, or sincere. That's why Oscar can write about all different kinds of mysticism. He doesn't have to believe in a particular idea to write a beautiful thing about it. If one tells the truth, one is sure sooner or later to be found out. Pleasure is the only thing one should live for. Nothing ages like happiness. It is only by not paying one's bills that one can hope to live in the memory of the commercial classes. No crime is vulgar, but all vulgarity is crime. Vulgarity is the conduct of others. Only the shallow know themselves. Time is a waste of money. One should always be a little improbable. There is a vitality about all good resolutions. They're invariably made too soon. Do you feel like that around New Year's? that you're making your resolutions when you're about 3 years into the new year? The only way to atone for being occasionally a little overdressed is by being absolutely always overeducated. Definitely living my life by that. To be premature is to be perfect. Any occupation with ideas of what is right or wrong in conduct shows an arrested intellectual development. I guess he and Nietzsche would have something to talk about here. I mean, let's just leave it at that. Ambition is the last refuge of the failure. How unfortunate. A truth ceases to be true when more than one person believes in it. In examinations, the foolish ask questions that the wise cannot answer. Greek dress was in its essence inartistic. Nothing should reveal the body but the body. I think he would be shocked at some of the things people walk around wearing today. One should either be a work of art or wear a work of art. It is only the superficial qualities that last. Man's deeper nature is soon found out. Industry is the root of all ugliness. Now, do you think he means like industrial commercial industry, or do you think he means any kind of work? I feel like it has to be the former. The ages live in history through their anachronisms. It is only the gods who taste of death. Apollo has passed away, but Hyacinth, whom men say he slew, lives on. Nero and Narcissus are always with us. The old believe everything. The middle-aged suspect everything. The young know everything. The condition of perfection is idleness. The aim of perfection is youth. Only the great masters of style ever succeed in being obscure. There is something tragic about the enormous number of young men there are in England at the present moment who start life with perfect profiles and end up by adopting some useful profession. To love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Go check out my movie, Salome's Last Prance. The link is in the description. Also in the description is where to buy my art. My channel page has where to send me a one-time donation. Salome's Last Prance. Go watch it. Let me know what you think, okay? I will see you tomorrow.